Today, we are in our home state.
Yep. Alabama.
It's hot. It's humid.
Oh, very humid. Because it's supposed to rain later today.
You already got the swamp ass.
It's hot, so hot. So
but
humid.
we are here because they have opened up gates to a hospital located in Mount Vernon, Alabama that has been closed since 2012.
Yep.
Now they have this thing locked up pretty tight. Like nobody's been able to get in here unless you trespassed and you did all kinds of illegal stuff, which I think there's been a couple.
There've been a few over the years. I mean,
but this is, as far as I know, the second time they have opened up the gates for tours. So of course we jumped at the opportunity, along with a bunch of other people. There's a ton of people in line right now waiting to see what is behind these walls.
Yeah, because if you didn't work here, then you didn't really know what, other than what you could see from the road passing by, which wasn't much, few little houses. So this place has been shrouded in mystery for a very long time.
Been waiting in this line for I don't even know how long. I've lost track of time.
Forever and a day.
How are you feeling?
Hot. Moist.
Gross. Getting kind of close.
I'm really hot and sweaty, but excited.
That's the plan. They're gonna let us perish in the line.
Yep.
Just get
Sweating out all my hydration.
near death, and then cart us in there and to become part of the ghost.
As long as I can be a little cooler than this right
Yeah,
now.
as long as the afterlife is at least 100 degrees cooler than it is.
Wait, so remember back in New Orleans, I think we claimed what ghost we would be. Or you were like,
Did we do that?
yeah, remember you were like, what was it, the corner guy?
Corner guy?
You were
Oh,
corner
yeah.
guy ghost.
I'll be a corner guy around here.
I remember y'all were like, what ghost you gonna be? And I said, like, fountain ghost. There's a fountain
There's a
right
fountain
over
right
there.
there for you.
What ghost did I get?
No, I didn't even remember doing that.
Yeah, it was like outside of the Madame LaLaurie's house,
Oh,
where the hurricanes were real.
Yeah, that's
taking
probably
over.
why I don't remember.
Yeah, that conversation didn't actually
Yeah.
happen.
I was still drinking at that time, and not well.
I'd go with mine now, but if they ever clean this place up, I'd be screwed.
Yeah, you got a job.
I'd just be like,
You got a job there.
I need to blend right here, but I can't. They took away all my vines.
You could be attic ghost,
Yeah, as long as it's not hot up there.
but you're a ghost. You wouldn't feel the temperature.
I mean, you don't know that. Maybe that's why ghosts are more active, like in spring and fall, because it's not too hot and it's not too cold.
Maybe.
Maybe they're like, "Shit, it's too hot out there. Look at New Orleans. It gets hot down there. You don't see no ghosts. Ain't nothing haunted doing it in the summertime. That's their off season.
Built in the early 1830s. My records show 1811, but some of these other records show 1828. But all the white buildings were the original arsenal.
Okay.
This is the administration building, and it housed Geronimo when he got brought up here with his other Apache Indians. There was a room in here on this back side, had a big wooden door about 6-8 inches thick that he was held behind.
Wow.
This building over here, Unit 1, there was another one across the street identical to it. They tore it down in the 1980s to build new buildings based on the Wyatt versus Stickney Act. When they tore it down, the Historical Society found out and they wouldn't let them tear this building down. But they built one there's 3 of these new buildings
Let me know.
built in the 1986 time frame, and all the patients after they were finished were housed in these new buildings. Now, this one over here was a ward setup building where there was just a big room, open room with beds about 2 or 3 foot from each other where the patients stayed, and they were separated from males and females on the different units.
Okay.
Nursing service was down here on this section of this building during the hospital era. For the military, they built the military road coming into Mount Vernon, but then they also, when trains got started and we had the train track, there was a train track that come across the Coy Smith Highway that came up here to bring supplies and coal and stuff, because they had a coal stack back there. That's how they heated the area. So this was one of the commander's quarters, built somewhere around the 1820s, 1830s, housed officers. During the hospital time, it was for staffing and administrative purposes. These 2 buildings here were the reception hall for males, and then down here on the other end was females. This was an open area. That was before the Moore Center. So basically those 2 buildings faced each other. The Friends of Searcy built the Moore Center here. It's a full-size gym, and it has rooms all the way around it. There's a library. There was audio-visual stuff that they could use. There's a banking area because the patient had bank accounts that they could get money sent. They could go to the bank, get money, come here to this building, which was their canteen. In the military time, it was commissioners' quarters for the officers, for tools, for uniforms. But when they moved the patients around and got the patients out of any of these buildings that they were being used, they turned it into the canteen.
Okay.
So it had snacks, clothes, just a variety of things that the patients can purchase. This building here on your right was a dental clinic. It was just a 1-story officer's quarters. And let's see. Then when they opened the hospital, it was the dental clinic. So they had physicians, they had nurses, they had psychiatrists, and the patients could make appointments. They would identify if they needed, whether they need routine care, such females, gynecologists. We had a gynecology doctor here that would do that. We had the dental clinic that they could schedule appointments. They had a dental hygienist that worked in there. So this road went down to that top of that building. You can say over there is one of the new buildings. Not that one. There's through the woods there. There's one identical to that big one, a 3-story. That's called Pouncey. It was called Pouncestone. We called it Pouncey. That 1-story building was for food services. They cooked the foods there and delivered them to the buildings that housed the patients. That building out there was the Claudette Box. That was admissions unit for a while, but then it housed the geriatric clients. This building here, staff development, housed nurses, the psychiatrist, the psychologist. People would come through going to work, and they would have to go through staff development, kind of like HR, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
They would do teaching programs for the people being employed. That was the rehab services. It housed individuals doing rehab services. They had home ec for the patients to teach them how to cook and how to organize their home and to make beds. This was one of the military built barracks, and then it was for staff housing, and that was that one back there. That's the blacksmith building. So this is the blacksmith building here. It was an arsenal and smithing building when during the military time, and it was used for groundkeeping. It's a big building, maintenance and for carpentry also. So this was the reception hall. I wish I could figure out which was males and females.
I believe this was female.
This was
The other
female.
one was male.
Yeah, 15 is females. Reception hall for females, built in the early 50s. It was when the patients moved out of these buildings and went in the new buildings in the 80s. It was used for administrative purposes, therapeutic, interventions for patients, meeting with psychiatrists, those type things.
Place is definitely a lot bigger than what you think it is.
Yeah, it really is.
Because from the road, you don't get to see all this. So you're like, oh, it's just a few buildings. And
So this was another barracks here on the left-hand side, and then it was used for a dorm for the patients, and then it went into administrative type services.
Yes, we just got it yesterday,
Oh,
actually.
really?
So I did my clinical practicum here as a nurse when I was in the late 80s, and when I came to get oriented, they gave me a ring of keys about this big around.
wow.
And it was all those skeletal keys. They still had the old doors.
Right.
Yes.
Wow.
All of them had numbers on them, and a lot of the doors would have the numbers that you had to use the key,
Right.
but it was still, but it was interesting that they still had that.
Wow.
People who retired from here got a brick from the wall pieces of the wall that had fallen. They would give them a brick and put one of those skeletal keys and shellac it for them.
Nice.
This is
That's
the
a good parting gift.
McCafferty Chapel. That building was also built by Friends of Searcy. They had different denominational preaching in there, but they had somebody that was on staff that was a pastor.
It's like hell, though.
Back of it, it's like falling in. Like
Oh,
out of the
really?
pool.
It's just the
Yeah,
front. Looks okay.
yeah.
They had problems with the roof on that for some time, though.
That's what fell in. Was the
That
back
was-
part of the
yeah.
roof. The front is good. It's literally like where the poop is.
Yeah. But see, that storm that came through that time went right across there
Okay.
because it got part of one of those buildings up there.
And speaking of it being bigger than you think, we're gonna drive by here, but there's a few more. There's like a geriatrics building down there, and a building that they use for like the arts and different crafts and stuff. But also there's a wall, you should be able to see it, and behind that was where they had a dairy farm and where they kept the Native
Nice.
Americans when they were here.
Oh, okay.
It's overgrown now, but
Right.
There was a Unit 9 and a Unit 10 back there. That's the morgue right here to your right.
All right, Phil, you guys spend the night there.
Yep. That's the building to stay in right
Yeah.
there.
yeah.
Yep.
But this was a very family-oriented place to work here. It was a good community. The patients, majority, they felt safe and secure, and they got to go out on ground privileges depending on, their ground privilege level. But the patients had a good relationship with the people that worked here. It was a very neat experience. This was where all the supplies came in, and they would, organize them. And if patients needed clothes and shoes, underwear, they could come and get them, or they would send a mental health worker over to get what they needed. So all of this down here was part of the maintenance and a boiler house. Those were built probably in the 40s and the 50s. So that was not part of the original arsenal. They were built a little bit later. But that train track came in right back here. There's some type of smokestack used to be out there, but we couldn't tell where it was. The kudzu is it may be where
Probably
that
buried
kudzu is.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's a tree or if it's on one of those stacks.
Yeah, kudzu's definitely taking over everything.
It is.
Which they say it don't take long for it to.
Yeah, because the grounds were immaculate. They always kept them up and very neat and clean.
Oh yeah, I bet whenever it was open, this place was real nice looking.
So my grandmother was a seamstress here and a mental health worker. My mother retired from here from staff development after 27 years. And my stepdad was director of rehabilitative services here.
Oh, nice.
I brought students here for their part of their clinical rotation
Right.
for 20 years, or 27 years. I'm glad.
So that's for everybody's so that's
Yeah.
nice.
So patients would have ground privileges, and they would just be walking the streets and sidewalks and visiting, and everybody had a mental health worker that was watching them.
Right.
So, and they would just walk around. They had certain places they could go and couldn't go, and there was usually a line, like a yellow line or something. I'm thinking it was yellow, but it could have been a different color. But it would say, don't go past this.
Right.
And we didn't have a lot of problems with patients, trying to get out or just walk away.
Well,
Most of them were glad to be here to have a home to come to. This is an old medical records building. Yeah, I think they had the laundry in part of here too. So this was the 3-story building, is what we called it. Some people called it the tower, but it was used for rehabilitation services. On the first floor, they had a little eating area where the patients could come eat if they were at a certain level. They had to be at a certain level to be able to come over here because they had to be able to participate with the activities. They had training rooms on a second and third floor, how to maintain a checkbook, they'd have it set up like a room in your home, and how would you go in and maintain it?
Right.
What would you do?
okay.
And just various things depending on what daily activities they needed help with. And everybody had somebody that was working with them, a social worker, to determine what level of training and what they needed. And then once they got to a certain level in the hospital, they could come and go through rehab services. They had a big TV room downstairs that they could watch TV, but it kind of gave them a sense of, I'm getting better, I'm getting closer, because they could come over here, and it was set up more like a cafeteria. They would get trays, they could go through and pick out what they wanted. It was.
Okay.
This was the pharmacy over here. It was used by the military for like a treasury area to pay them out of, but it was our pharmacy.
Okay.
This is just the other side of the.
Yes.
Yeah. This is part of that building that we just went by, this delivery for their supplies. And this was just one of the barracks from the war. But there was activities that they did for the patient. They would have a fall festival on the grounds back there. It was an area where we didn't go to, back up against the wall. The employees would set up little booths for them to do like a fair thing, and they would have Christmas events. We would do a Christmas parade
Oh, nice.
for the patients. We would do Mardi Gras parade, stuff like that.
Well,
But it was a good sense of community up here.
yeah, I definitely say they were doing a lot more for the patients here than what most facilities do.
Yeah.
Most of them just kind of, all right,
Well,
you're locked in a room, and
It's
you're-
it's a lot to do with funding, but it's we need more services, but we're doing the best that we can with what we have right now.
right,
So,
right.
I mean, deinstitutionalization, getting patients out in the community, because we started having medications that they could do that. And, you know, a lot of the patients can function outside the hospital once they are maintained on their medicine.
Right.
It's just getting them to the level that they can comprehend and be thinking, oh, I got to take this medicine.
Yeah.
So there was a acute medical unit on this building. So like if we had somebody that needed IVs or certain types of treatment, we could have them housed there. But that was the entrance. You come in that way, and when you leave, you went out that gate over there.
Let's see what we got up in here. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay. So this is the inside of one of the buildings. To the left is a staircase that goes upstairs, but it's surprisingly, to be abandoned for so long, very clean in here.
So we just finished our tour, but you can see over there is still a long line waiting to get in. And what they do is they come and they pick you up on side-by-sides or golf carts or like a really big car. They're coming out right now. Like that right there. And that's what you roll around on. And you get a nice, knowledgeable guide to tell you about all the buildings.
Yeah, and this place is way bigger than what we thought it was going to be. Way bigger. Well, that does it for Searcy Hospital here in Mount Vernon, Alabama. I wish they, well, I don't wish, I hope that they continue to get the funds to continue to fix this place up, because I think it would look very, very nice if they could get that. Like, get the roofs redone, mainly just get rid of all of the kudzu, because that stuff's taking over everything.
Yeah. I mean, we've been to several hospitals like this that have been shut down. And whether it be just like walking tours like Medfield, you know, like where you can walk in between the buildings but not go into them, or turn it into something like Trans-Allegheny or, you know, Waverly Hills, that would be really cool. But, I mean, if the buildings are too far gone for that, I definitely think they would benefit from like a Medfield situation. Yeah,
the Medfield where you could come and walk and just, you know, walk your dog, walk yourself, walk your kid, you know, and kind of get to see everything. That would be cool. I think there's a few buildings here they could do, you know, a Trans-Allegheny, but we definitely didn't need a lot more funding and fixer up to do the rest of them. Because there's a lot of buildings here. It's not just like 2 or 3 big buildings and that's it. It's a lot of smaller buildings, bigger buildings. But I hope they get it.
Yeah, because it would definitely kind of eliminate, I think, all of the curiosity of what's back there, and kind of eliminate people from wanting to break in as much.
Right.
Maybe you'll still have the people that want to come, like, you know, nightly ghost hunting and stuff.
They need to do that too. Definitely need to do that. Not 100% sure if this place is even haunted. Just because it hasn't been closed for decades and decades like most places.
But it is old.
But it's very old. And it goes back to the Civil War, Native Americans, stuff. So, you know, you never know.
So, you know, if you worked at Searcy, which, I mean, whenever I was a psych nurse, I did work with a couple of people that worked here. Of course, I didn't really get ghost stories from them. The only thing they told me was Searcy Hospital was an amazing place to work.
I can see that,
but
especially after this tour.
If you worked here and you have some spooky stories, leave it in the comments.
Until next time, we'll catch you down the road at the next exit.
Keep it spooky.
Later.